Do you actually know, actually know, when you should claim your Social Security benefits? Not what you've heard at the dinner table, not what your coworker told you when you were both complaining about taxes in the break room, not the vague, half-remembered thing you read on some website 3 years ago. I mean, do you actually know? Have you run the numbers? Have you thought through your specific situation, your age, your health, your spouse, your kids, your savings, and arrived at a real, defensible answer? If you just got a little quiet, yeah, that's what I thought. And look, I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because most people, and I mean most, are winging one of the most important financial decisions of their entire life. We're talking about a decision that could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars over your retirement. And people are making it based on vibes. Here's the thing. A while back, I came across a letter that stopped me cold. It was written to a financial advice column by a retired guy. Let's call him Retired at 64. And in it, he describes something that I think is genuinely one of the smartest, most underappreciated Social Security moves I've ever heard. And the crazy part? He almost didn't do it. He almost made a massive, six-figure mistake because he was so focused on conventional wisdom that he missed what was right in front of him. So today, we're going to break this story down. We're going to pull it apart, examine it from every angle, and by the time we're done, I want you to walk away with a completely different way of thinking about Social Security. Not the generic way, not the always wait until 70 way, the real way, where you actually think about your own life. Let's go. Hello, I'm Anne. Welcome to my channel. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, or financial advice. Let's get right into it. Okay, so here's the setup. This guy, retired at 64, is approaching his 64th birthday. He's been doing everything right. He's educated, financially savvy, the kind of guy who actually thinks about money. And like most financially literate people, he'd absorbed the dominant Social Security narrative. Wait as long as possible. Wait until 70. Let that benefit grow. Maximize it. And honestly, that advice isn't wrong. For a lot of people, waiting until 70 is the right move. Every year you delay claiming past your full retirement age, your benefit grows by about 8%. That's a guaranteed 8% return, which, by the way, is hard to beat in any environment. So he's thinking, okay, I'll wait. I'll be patient. I'll be disciplined. But then, just before he turns 64, something clicks. He realizes that his teenage daughter would be eligible to receive Social Security dependent benefits based on his work record. Specifically, 2/3 of his benefit amount, for 5 years, until she turned 18. Now, I want you to pause here and let that sink in, because this is the kind of thing that doesn't come up in the standard Social Security conversation. We're always talking about the individual benefit, your benefit, when you should claim, what your monthly check looks like. But Social Security has this whole other dimension, dependence, and specifically, minor children can receive benefits when a parent claims, even if that parent is under full retirement age. So he does the math, and the math changes everything. Here's how the math works, and I'm going to walk you through this carefully because this is the part most people skip, and skipping it is exactly how you lose money. When you're deciding when to claim Social Security, the key concept is the break-even age. This is the age at which the cumulative total of claiming early equals what you would have collected by waiting longer. If you live past the break-even age, waiting was the better financial decision. If you don't, claiming early wins. Now, under the standard analysis, no dependents, just him, his break-even age for claiming at 64 versus waiting until full retirement age or 70 was somewhere just over 80. So if he lives past 80, he comes out ahead by waiting. If he dies before 80, he comes out ahead by claiming early. Given his estimate of his own life expectancy, somewhere between 84 and 86, waiting seemed like the marginally better bet. But here's what changes when you add his daughter's benefits into the equation. By claiming at 64, he triggers not just his own monthly check, but also a dependent benefit for his daughter equal to roughly 2/3 of his primary amount. That runs for 5 years, until she turns 18. That's 5 years of an additional income stream that he would have gotten $0 of if he'd waited until 70. When he factors that in, the break-even age for claiming at 64 doesn't sit at 80 anymore. It shifts all the way to about 86. Think about what just happened there. Because he ran the actual numbers, because he took 30 minutes to think about his specific situation instead of just defaulting to conventional wisdom, he discovered that the smart move of waiting was actually the worst financial decision for him. Given his longevity estimates, claiming early was clearly superior, and he almost missed it. He was so locked into the wait until 70 framework that he nearly left years of his daughter's benefits on the table. Now, I want to address something because I can already hear some of you thinking, okay, but he needed the money, right? He was cash-strapped. That's why he claimed early. No, that's exactly not what happened. And this is part of what makes this story so instructive. He was not financially desperate. He and his wife had substantial savings and investments. They had a relatively aggressive investment strategy. They were, by his own admission, in a position where they did not need the Social Security income at 64. And that raised a second, more subtle question. Might he need a larger Social Security check later in retirement? This is where most people's analysis completely falls apart, because it's not enough to just think about break-even ages. You have to think about what role Social Security plays in your total financial picture across your entire retirement. So what did he do? He projected their cash flows out to age 90 for himself and age 100 for his wife, who is 10 years younger, which is a whole other layer of complexity that most couples never properly account for. And what he found was that under even conservative assumptions, Social Security would represent only about 20% of their income in retirement. 20%. When Social Security is a relatively small slice of your retirement income, and you have substantial assets that are compounding in the meantime, the calculus shifts. A larger check later matters less when the check is a small piece of a large pie. A smaller check now, combined with 5 years of your daughter's benefits being invested in a 529 plan, that math looks very different. He said it himself. In his view, that made the money more valuable now than later. And here's where this story gets even better. Because what did they do with the daughter's Social Security benefit? They didn't spend it on day-to-day stuff. They invested most of it into a 529 college savings plan. Now she's in her first year at the University of Minnesota. It's running about $56,000 a year net, and she still has $313,000 in the 529. Enough to cover the rest of her undergraduate degree and likely 2 years of graduate school. And her dad is already planning to make sure she has at least $35,000 available to roll into a Roth IRA once she's done with school. Let me say that again. A decision about when to claim Social Security, a decision that most people make in about 15 minutes based on something they half remembered, set this kid up financially in a way that will compound for decades. That's not luck. That's not some genius secret strategy. That is what happens when someone actually thinks about their situation. Okay, let's zoom out, because I don't want this to be a story you just find interesting and then forget about. I want this to actually change how you think about retirement planning. So let me give you the bigger picture. According to a 2023 analysis from the Stanford Center on Longevity, a staggering majority of Americans claim Social Security before their optimal age, with most claiming at 62 or 63, the earliest possible ages. The researchers estimated that the cumulative financial losses from suboptimal claiming could be worth trillions of dollars in aggregate across the American retiree population. Trillions, with a T. And it's not because people are dumb, it's because the decision feels complicated. It involves confronting your own mortality, and the conventional wisdom is just vague. Wait as long as you can. Claim at 70 if you can afford to. These aren't strategies. These are bumper stickers. Real strategy looks like what this guy did. It looks like 1. Mapping out every income source that could be triggered by your claiming decision. Not just your benefit, your spouse's benefit, dependent benefits, survivor benefits, all of it. 2. Running an honest break-even analysis based on your health and family history, not the average, you. 3. Understanding what role Social Security actually plays in your total retirement income. Is it 20% like this guy? Is it 80%? That number matters enormously. 4. Thinking about your spouse's timeline, not just your own. If your spouse is significantly younger, their potential survivor benefit should factor heavily into your decision. 5. Stress testing your assumptions. What if you live to 90? What if markets underperform? What if healthcare costs explode? Most people do none of this. Most people are operating on financial autopilot in one of the highest stakes decisions of their lives. Now, here's the part of this story that I think is the most quietly devastating. And I say this with genuine frustration because I see it constantly. The guy who wrote this letter mentioned a friend of his, a well-educated, capable, intelligent person, the kind of person you'd assume has their financial house in order. This friend, during his peak earning years, had been disengaged from his financial life, not paying attention, not analyzing, not thinking critically about money decisions the way our guy was. And the result? By the time our guy showed him what that inattention had cost, it was millions, not thousands, millions of dollars in lost wealth. Now think about that. Think about the kind of bright, capable, hardworking person who spends their career building something, only to realize too late that a lack of attention during the years when the math works hardest for you costs more than almost anything else ever could. Does any of that feel familiar? Are you that person right now? Are you the friend in that story? Look, the point isn't to make you feel bad about past decisions. You can't undo those. The point is to wake you up to the decisions you're making right now because the math still works. The compounding still happens. The variables are still in play, but only if you're paying attention. So let me give you the specific things I want you to walk away and actually do. First, if you have minor children, go to ssa.gov right now and look up the rules around dependent benefits. This is not exotic information. It's right there on the Social Security Administration's website. If your child is under 18 when you claim, they may be eligible for a benefit equal to up to 50% of your primary insurance amount. That's a massive potential income stream that millions of parents are completely unaware of. Second, stop thinking about Social Security in isolation. Pull up a spreadsheet or use one of the free Social Security calculators online. OpenSocialSecurity.org is a solid, free tool. And model your claiming decision across multiple scenarios. Model your specific health history. Model your spouse's age and life expectancy. Model what happens if you live to 95. Third, understand the family maximum benefit. Social Security places a cap on the total amount a family can receive based on one earner's record. If you have multiple dependents, you need to understand how this ceiling works, because it affects how much each person actually receives. Fourth, talk to a fee-only financial advisor, not someone who earns commissions on products, someone who charges you directly for their advice and has a fiduciary duty to act in your interest. One conversation about Social Security optimization with the right advisor could easily be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Fifth, and this one is the most important, start the analysis before you think you need to. This guy almost missed a 5-year dependent benefit window because he almost didn't think about it until right before his 64th birthday. The earlier you model this out, the more options you have. Here's the thing about Social Security that nobody tells you. It is not a passive benefit. It is not something that just happens to you. It is a set of rules, complicated, sometimes counterintuitive rules, that reward the people who take the time to understand them and quietly penalize everyone else. The break-even analysis, the dependent benefits, the spousal benefits, the survivor benefits, the earnings test if you claim early and keep working, the taxation of benefits at different income levels. There are dozens of variables, and every single one of them can shift the optimal strategy depending on your situation. But here's the flip side. Because it is complicated, most people don't bother. And that means the rewards for the small minority who do engage, who sit down, run the numbers, think through their specific situation, those rewards are genuinely enormous. This guy put his daughter through university and set her up with a Roth IRA foundation, largely off the back of a Social Security claiming decision that he almost got wrong. That's the power of this. That's what's available to you if you're willing to pay attention. I'll leave you with this. The letter writer, retired at 64, mentioned that he gave up quite a few racetrack days at Watkins Glen to make his daughter's financial foundation happen, and then he called it a hard-earned win. I love that, because that's what all of this actually is. Not genius, not luck, not secret insider knowledge. It's attention. It's the willingness to sit down with the uncomfortable numbers, to think about your own mortality and your family's future, to do the work that most people avoid. And the people who do that work, they win. Quietly, consistently, in ways that don't make headlines but absolutely change lives. You have access to the same information this guy had. You have access to the same tools. The only question is whether you're going to use them. So go run the numbers. Talk to someone who knows this stuff. Think hard about your situation, not the average person's situation, your situation. Because the difference between the right claiming strategy and the default one could be the difference between scraping by in retirement and funding your kid's entire education. That decision is worth a few hours of your time. I promise you it is. Now go make it.